Welcome to Healing Beyond the Trauma. My name is Megan Alves. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. And this podcast, I want to break the stigma around mental health and have real, unfiltered conversations about healing. Some stories are going to be raw, even triggering at times, but they're real and they're honest because healing starts with honesty. If you've ever felt overwhelmed, stuck, or like you're carrying it all, you're not. Here, you're going to gain validation, practical tools, and a new perspective to move forward. Because healing isn't about erasing the past. It's about reclaiming your future. So let's dive in. Welcome back to another episode. This is a little extra of an intro because in today's episode, I decided to do a surprise early release. It's really inspired by how many of you reached out and resonated with Janet's message of not trying to heal on your own. So in today's episode, I dive in with Janet, who is a clinical director of Crossroads. She's been an equine therapy specialist, and she shares about growing up around horses and what led her into social work. But I really want to take a moment and share that this conversation, as many of my conversation, talks about suicidal thoughts and deep, deep depressions. But I think it's really important to share that when we try to do healing on our own, it is not going to be as productive and oftentimes can lead us down a path that's not as beneficial. So in today's episode, I really want to share that if you are struggling and you need support, please don't do it alone. And there's so many supports out there for you. I have links and resources in this episode as well as my website. Please reach out. If you are in need of resources, I've got you. This is something I'm passionate about. And this is really the mission behind this podcast is to help break mental health stigma and have deeper conversations because you're not alone in your struggle. I hope today's episode resonates and I hope you share it with those that might need it. And most importantly, I hope you remember that you're not alone. Hi, and welcome back to another episode. Today, as I will always say, because I just feel so honored that our guests take their time to show up and show out and share their story with us. I am so honored to introduce you guys to Janet Masanz. Did I get it right? Yes. And we are going to talk about a ton of things. I got to talk to her a little bit more offline before we started recording. So I'm excited for you to share a little bit about yourself, what you're doing. And I'm really excited because I don't think that we talk about equine therapy and all the different modalities of therapy enough. You started your journey at 18. So welcome so much to the podcast. Introduce yourself.
Yes, definitely. Well, thank you for having me. I mean, it's an honor to be on your podcast. I've heard great things about it from other colleagues who've also been on there. So my name's Janet Masanz. I'm an LCSW in the state of Nevada. I'm currently the clinical director of Crossroads of Southern Nevada. But to back up years and years ago, my experience in this field started when I was 18 years old. And it was really something that was unexpected for me. I was not planning to go to school for therapy or social work or mental health. I was actually going in the kinesiology track with UNLV. And really just no reason behind it. That's just what I decided to select one day.
Yeah, we're 18, right? Like, what do I do with my life? Everyone's like, what are you going to do when you grow up? I don't know.
I was like, this sounds good. I like to be athletic and sports medicine sounds neat. And that was really the only drive. So there wasn't a lot of passion there. However, I grew up riding horses my entire life. Beautiful memories with my parents, family, friends from different rodeos and barrel races. And then moving out when I was 18 to my own little horse ranch with some girlfriends. And I knew that I loved horses.
Yeah.
I loved training horses. I loved doing sports on horses. My whole life was really wrapped around that. So during my high school journey, as well as into my early CSN years and UNLV, a lot of what my income was training other individuals' horses. I could make my own schedule. I enjoyed doing so. And so to fast forward a little bit, I got hired into an equine therapy ranch.
That's amazing. Was this all in Las Vegas? Did you grow up in Las Vegas?
Yeah, so I actually grew up in Mount Charleston, right outside of Vegas.
Oh, love Mount
Um,
Charleston. For those of you that live in Las Vegas or are visiting Las Vegas, Mount Charleston is like this beautiful, secret, woodsy mountain area that is, I mean, you walk up there and I have not smelled a smell like Mount Charleston. It's so fresh. I don't know if it still rings like that for you if you grew up there, but
so it definitely does.
it,
My parents have been up there 32 years. I own a home up there still, so it'll always be
amazing.
a part of me.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Yes. Okay. So you grew up there and
Mhm.
then started and you were helping to train other people's horses.
Yes, and so it was always on a smaller scale. I grew up with an individual who worked at this horse ranch in a different capacity, and she knew that I knew how to ride horses, train horses, the whole 9 yards. So I got hired on, and I would only be there before or after hours from this business that they were running. And my sole purpose was riding the horses. But I started to become curious on what do they actually do here. I see that by the time I'm leaving, they're bringing in adolescents. They're doing something in this arena, the horses, and then there's therapists involved. And so I asked, can I start shadowing so I can learn more about this? And they were using the model AGALA, so Equine-Assisted Growth and Learning Association. And so essentially, there's an individual who's certified as an equine specialist working alongside a therapist. And the equine specialist role is to understand the body language of the horse and how they interact with others, because a horse is a direct mirror of our emotions and our feelings that we don't necessarily express out loud, but they can feel all this energy inside of us. So I
It's
became
so
very interested,
interesting. I
very
I was
interested.
on the military and first responders unit at Desert Parkway, and so when we had folks that would stay for a longer period of time, we were able to take them to equine assisted
Mhm.
and the ex just like the energy that would come back every time a group would go, there was no words to put into what would shift in them therapeutically. It was beautiful. And so and we still have there's a couple ranches out here that do equine assisted. Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you
there's
know
still a
which
few.
ones those are?
There's Horses for Heroes. There's a new one that opened up called Raw Horsepower. Um, there's a few others. So those are off the top of my head is Horses for Hero and Raw Horsepower that Raw just opened up, but there's a couple more and I
Okay.
just can't
I
remember
can
their
link those in the
names.
show notes. We're not affiliated with this, so do your research. Those of you that are listening, but we'll definitely make sure to put those in the show notes. Yeah. And so that's how, and you were 18 at that time?
18. Yes.
Yeah.
And so
And
that's
so,
really where I started the shadowing, and getting the thoughts of maybe I want to do something different. So that's where that started for me.
yeah, I love that. And then, so how did you decide a social work path at that point?
So I began shadowing for the equine therapy sessions, and then the owner who hired me on for the horse exercising offered to pay for my AGALA certification as the equine specialist. So I went
Amazing.
through that certification course and I started working alongside therapists, one who was a longtime friend that I grew up with throughout school who went to the path of clinical professional counseling. And I started to ask her, why did you do this? What's the difference between these licensures? I'm not sure what I want to do in my life. What are your thoughts? And so at first I was still reeling on the fence with all of that until going through a whole client, um, I guess not a client session. We worked with this same client over the course of many, many months. And I'll never forget when she was getting ready to discharge and complete EGALA treatment with us, how she said, thank you for saving my life. I love myself again. I
Oh,
want to be here. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is what I want to do.
yeah.
This is what feels good to me. And so um, the therapist is the one who guided me. So my longtime friend, she guided me into the path of you should consider social work because it is such a broad umbrella of all these
Yeah.
different areas you can go into.
Which is
and that's how I
so
got
true, and
there.
there is so many avenues. So, for anybody listening, I mean, there's marriage and family therapy, there's a CPC, which is, certified professional counselor, there's social work, and you can go 2 levels where you could be a master's of social work, but then you can go complete another 3,000 clinical hours, more testing, and then that's licensed clinical social worker. So then, like, the umbrella of things that you can do opens even bigger.
Yes.
Um, I'm sure I'm missing a few, but there's a lot of different paths that you can take as a therapist, but I was told the same thing. Like, if you want a
Mm.
broader range of what you could do, go down for social work.
Yes, and that's
Yeah.
exactly what I did.
And so how was that path for you, and did you have any experience with mental health besides the equine before you signed up into social work?
So I could say personal experiences. So growing up, I grew up in Mount Charleston, so more of a rural community. My elementary school was 8 kids, kindergarten through 5th grade, so very small knit, and I wanna say 3 of them at the time were my cousins. So
Very
I kinda describe my upbringing, I mean, a beautiful one, but sheltered. It was, hike around the forest, ride your horses. This is what life looks like growing up in the mountains. But I quickly noticed once I left Lundy Elementary and went to Indian Springs in the 5th
yeah.
grade that I didn't fit in. I was not a normal kid. I was this mountain horse girl, that's what they would always call me, that didn't
Oh,
have the same social experience. I wasn't really quite sure how to make friends, what sports were like outside of horses, hanging out at
yeah.
at the time the kids, go to the parks and all of this. I didn't have that growing up. I started to become bullied at a very young age. I had
Mm.
crooked teeth, I had this big forehead. They wrote it in my yearbooks, and so I started
Kids are
developing.
mean.
They're so mean. They're
So
so mean.
mean. And you know what's so interesting is oftentimes I'll have clients come in and they'll talk about like their big traumas that may have happened in life. And then we go back a little bit further, and the majority of them have, not a majority, I might be overstretching, but a lot of them don't realize how much those bullying experiences for those that were bullied really impacted their overall confidence. And when we go back there and work on those traumas, the confidence can like blossom again because it gets so stifled. Dang it.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Yeah, it became very difficult because I think it set the precedence of how I viewed myself. I mean, all the way into adulthood was that, I wasn't good enough. I wasn't
Mm,
pretty enough. I wasn't athletic enough. I didn't, all of these things I carried that viewpoint throughout elementary to middle school to high school. Those
so
thoughts would
young.
always come up for me. And so circling back to the first client that we had complete a gala when she said, I love myself again. I feel good. I want to be here again. I was like, I pictured myself kind of as like that young girl that I wanted to feel those ways. And like,
Yeah.
I've been in those dark places. And like, here I brought this light to someone. And,
Mhm.
like, I had many people in my past trying to bring that same light to me at that time.
Yeah, so what support did you have around you when you really started to notice that? Did you start going through mental health support, or was it just you were lucky enough to just have so many professionals around you give you, like, those nuggets of knowledge, so to say?
So I think this is where it becomes very convoluted. I was very quiet about how I used to feel when I was younger. I never really told anyone the self-esteem issues. I think they would come out. I would project them in different negative ways, and I would mask them. And so I became very big on, you know, school success, working a lot, training horse, anything to keep me busy so I wouldn't have to focus on those negative thoughts that I had in my head. And I think for a while that worked out really well for me when I started to realize, so I'm kind of jumping all over the place.
No, you're doing really good. Yeah, no, this is
The
helpful.
impact that it really had was I got it turned about 19 years old, got into my first long-term relationship. It went on for 6 years and it was
Wow.
extremely, extremely toxic.
Mhm.
traumatic relationship. And so I already had the idea that I wasn't good enough. And that
Yeah.
just became exasperated throughout this relationship. And so when I finally decided to leave at year 6,
Wow, that's a long
m
time.
my mental health was absolutely destroyed, rock bottom, suicidal thoughts. I mean, you name it, I had all of that.
Mm.
That's when I noticed the support. That's where the professionals I knew started calling me out. My family started calling me out. So it wasn't that I reached out at first. It was people started calling me out on the things that they noticed that I needed to change if I wanted to ever
Yeah.
be okay again.
Yeah. But you had it sounds like you had those warning signs. You knew, like, talking trash to yourself, not able to measure up, but a lot of high functioning individuals with low self-esteem do that exact thing. Let me
Yes.
overwork, let me overeducate, let me become, these are not most, again, I'm overgeneralizing, but these are a lot of high functioning individuals have had something in this realm at one time or
Mhm.
another. And thankfully for you, instead of being like, okay, I'm done, because oftentimes people, I mean, come to me in my clinical setting much later in life. And they're finally like, okay, I can't even function this way. I'm not sleeping
Mhm.
anymore. I can barely eat. I can't hold a conversation or a relationship because they've been in that fight or flight mode for so long that they don't even know how to function outside of it. And I mean, that's a long time for you to be in a toxic relationship, and
Yes.
it's not unheard of, right? A lot of people, it's if we don't know how to treat ourselves, it's hard to teach somebody else how to treat us, or to be like,
Mhm.
this is enough. I deserve more, when we're often internally saying, I'm not enough.
Yes.
So I celebrate you for getting out of that relationship, for listening to those that love you around you. But of course, my heart hurts for you that you had to go that long in that relationship. What would you say if somebody listening right now is like, "Oh, this sounds like me, we're twinning." What would you say would be some of those warning signs? And if you don't have those people around you to support you, what would you say to somebody listening?
So the warning signs, I've always been very in tune, I think, what's going on around me and inside of me. Just whether or not I'm listening to myself in those moments. So I
That's such
think
a
a lot
good
of the
point.
the warning signs was increased anxiety, and I maybe at first I wasn't sure what it was. So it actually, it sounds crazy, but when it started hitting me around 18 and 19, my anxiety getting really bad. It was year 1 I started the relationship, my anxiety spiked. I started
Mm.
having really bad panic attacks, and I couldn't breathe, and I would actually go to the hospital thinking that, I'm having this allergic reaction. I did not understand what was going on. Why was my body suddenly going cold and numb and I'm dizzy and I can't breathe?
Yeah,
Now
that sounds
looking
medical. Yeah.
Yes, and looking back, there was a negative thought in my head during each of those moments, but I never knew the mind-body connection. And so
Yeah.
that's when doctors started saying, it's like anaphylactic shock, it's anxiety. And I noticed that my anxiety was increasing during those times because of all the conflict that was going on in my relationship right off the bat. And I thought that I could mask and cope with it. But in the moments when I was by myself, that's when
When
I
it's
noticed
quiet.
I was very uneasy and I was in my head, and it was just, what can I do to be better? How do I make this person love me more? How do you become prettier? It was all the voices in my head, um, and I would start to feel it throughout my body. I think those were my first warning signs, and I
Yeah.
didn't know they were warning signs at first, but the body just tensing up out of nowhere from a thought in your head. I mean, it's all connected.
Right. Yeah, it reminds me, and I'm sure you've read The Body Keeps the Score. I'll never
Yes.
forget, and for anybody who hasn't read that book, I think it's it's a tough read. It's very clinical at
Yes.
times, and it's a very big book, but it's for those that can't quite make that connection yet, it's such a solid reminder of how important the mind-body connection is and how good the human brain is at ignoring it for as long as possible
Mhm.
and saying it's something else or this isn't connected, but if we allow that to continue to happen, our body just keeps holding on to and doing whatever it needs to do to help us keep going until enough's enough. And so, did you start social work school as all of this was going on?
Yes, I
Oh
did.
my gosh. I
And
couldn't even
that
imagine.
yeah, that was difficult because I was experiencing so much negativity and, emotional distress and all of it. But then in school, I was learning about all of it. And so it's
Mhm.
like I started assessing myself in this relationship and the dynamics of it wasn't about how it was unhealthy and I should leave. It was how can I fix this person so we can stay together?
Oh,
That's where
shoot.
that ended up for me.
Yeah, and anyone who has gone through social work school or any of our baby therapists or, if you're contemplating it, I wish there was a disclaimer for everyone before they started, especially a grad program in social work. And I'm sure the other professions in any helping profession realm is very similar to this, is you are hitting the ground running and expected to know a lot very quickly. And then you're in the field helping other people. So if you don't have that foundation for yourself of how to support yourself, how to know, like to know yourself, and how to have a supportive network through that. I mean, the majority of us have hit a burnout rate before school has even ended if we didn't do our work
Mhm.
beforehand. And I hear it, and I'm sure you've heard it quite a bit as well. Yes.
Yes, I experienced that firsthand in my journey of school, in personal life. I think my biggest period of burnout was during all of that. I mean,
Yeah.
it came to a point where I recall, I believe, just starting my master's degree. I might have finished the first semester. I physically and mentally could not do it anymore. And it was a 1 year fast track program. You couldn't take breaks. And I literally had
Wow.
to talk to UNR and the school and plead for this break because I totally lost myself.
Yeah.
I couldn't do school. I thought I was never gonna make it in this career because I burnt myself to the absolute ground in this relationship that I
Yeah.
didn't think I could get back up. And I took a whole year off of school, a lot of time off of work to really just figure figure out my life again.
Oh, good for you because that's not easy to do to say, I have to take a time out from this in order. And I didn't even know that there was a 1 year fast track program because I did the 4 year in 2 years. And that was insane. I couldn't even imagine doing 1 year.
I believe it was a 1 year fast track. It was some fast track program where there was no break, and
You're like,
I
I don't even remember. Maybe, maybe it was, yeah, that's really intense. And so again, we kind of said this offline before we started recording is that it is so vitally important that if you're in the helping profession or you're curious about getting in the helping profession, do your work first, even if you're like, I'm not really sure if I'm functioning at my best, because again, you don't know what you don't know. And many
Mhm.
of us get into helping profession and we're like, ooh, I didn't even realize that these were some of the signs that I should be looking out for. And I'm like holding most of what those warning signs in that DSM-5 is giving me.
Yes.
And so and the biggest thing is that even if you're unsure and feel like you're doing great, you're going to want some level of support through especially a fast track program, but any type of helping profession because it goes by so fast. You're
Mhm.
helping so many people and pouring in so much that you're going to want that unbiased support through it. I
Mhm.
definitely wish there was like a, "Hey, part of your credits, you need to go get your own therapy through
Yes.
your master's program." Like, that would be like
Mhm.
rainbows and butterfly perfect, right?
It would be.
So, how did the majority if your close people were like, "Hey, we see some things, you should probably get some support." How did the majority of people view you? Did they see that type of functioning from you, or did they just think that you were just this high functioning individual, like, pushing through it? Were you pretty good at masking it still at that time?
So, towards the end of my master's degree, and then really when the end of my relationship ended, I would say the majority of people that I called acquaintances, I was viewed in a very, very poor light. I was
Mm.
talked very down upon that, the trauma wasn't seen of what I went through, and it was a lot.
Oh, so
But
you should have just been fine.
I but I should have well, I was just basically told, I should have walked away. I'm the reason that, like, I have anxiety and depression. I chose to stay in this
Oh.
relationship and this trauma. And then, the tables turned where I was viewed as, the narcissist and the poor one, and I ruined someone
Mm.
else's life. And I actually experienced so much isolation after finishing my degree and leaving that relationship that I felt like I had no one. It was actually very sad that the friend group, everyone turned on me, and that was like
Mm.
that for years. So the support that came in was, my mom encouraging me to get up out of bed every day. And, the friends that I still had that I rode horses with. And then I went heavy into personal trainers and fitness. And so I
Yeah.
hired coaches, and those became my mentors. And then I established a really beautiful relationship with Rob Banghart, who became my biggest mentor that brought me out of, like, a lot of darkness. Like, told me
Yeah,
what
I
I
mean,
needed
shout
to
out to
do.
Rob. Say
Yeah.
that last part again.
I said he would show up, and it's like he would never coddle. He would tell me, "This is what you need to do."
Mhm.
And I would do all of that, and that was you showing up to networking events and community events and sound healing and whatever it was just to keep finding peace. That was
Yeah.
a mentor that brought me along his side.
Ah, love him. Shout out to Rob.
Yeah.
We adore Rob. I mean, if you're in the clinical realm or if you are in, I mean, he is just a beacon of light that will push you to be the best version of yourself for sure.
Yes,
Um,
he is.
and so how did you end up choosing a facility like Crossroads? Tell us a little bit about Crossroads and what kind of drew you to them for now your clinical.
So I've been with Crossroads now for about 5.5 years.
Okay.
So I started the field of my first experience in the field of substance use was West Care's men's rehabilitation hair springs. So I did that for my bachelor's degree, and then I moved into various different practicum and clinical experiences. I started working for a company, ICANN Family Services, which is where I started working with co-occurring disorders as an intern. And I really loved
Was
working
that
in
when they were out here in Las Vegas or when they were in Nye County?
Nye County.
Okay.
So I would drive back and forth. It was quite a journey. And I really
Small world.
enjoyed working with co-occurring. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, a lot of the people that I grew up with, had addiction problems. I had,
Mm,
at that point, a friend who committed suicide over alcohol, and then another one that
mm,
was shot in a drug deal and overdoses. And the amount of heartbreak at a young age over substance use really made me want to get into, well, I want to be a part of the solution because it is such a societal norm to drink and party and all of these things, and people lose themselves. And when we don't talk about mental health, that's masked by this addiction, and it just becomes just devastating, the effects on individuals.
yeah.
And so that's really kind of how I got into Crossroads. And Crossroads, to give everyone kind of idea of what this facility is, we've been
Yeah.
open since I want to say 2018. So we serve adults 18 years of age and older, mental health and addiction, so co-occurring disorders from every level of care and every walk of life. So we work with a lot of those that come from institutionalization and are mandated to us from homelessness or hospital referrals, or those that just choose to self walk in And we offer detox, residential, partial hospitalization, intensive outpatient levels of care, as well as transitional housing.
I love that, and Crossroads has been, another beacon of light in our community for a lot of support for individuals with co-occurring, and I'll make sure to put their resources in the show notes as well, so if you or somebody that you love is struggling with mental illness, with substance abuse or addiction, I'll definitely link that, and, I'm sure Janet can help direct you in the right position, but I mean, these facilities are really there to help support when you're ready to take those steps. And then what I really like, like from being on an inpatient setting and seeing people go through this journey is that you guys have really built the connection in the community to help support individuals because oftentimes when you shift how you function in managing your stress levels with addiction, with any type of substance, you're really rewiring your whole system of how to manage stress.
Mhm.
And so after, like and I'm sure you can speak volumes to how important it is to have those connections in the community because you just spoke on you had a core group of people that were like, "Janet, it's your time to go get help. Like, you gotta
Yes.
go get this." And you gotta have that support around you, whether it is that I mean, if you're listening and you're starting, a helping profession, or if you're like, I'm struggling and I can't get on top of my mental health or an addiction that you're having, a village and a community of people is, I want to say, almost one of the most important factors to getting sustainable long term support. Would you agree with that?
Yes, 100% agree with that. I think there's so many people, including myself, that we think we can do it on our own. So we've read
Mhm.
all the books, we've read all the podcasts, we have the
Yeah.
trainers, so we become hyper focused on how to heal ourselves, and that only goes so far because as humans, in a sense, we are pack animals. We need connection with other individuals because when you're by yourself, that's who else are you sharing your thoughts with? So yes, you're coping and you have this really strict routine, but you have no connection, which we all crave. You don't have
Yeah.
someone else to lean on, vice versa. And without that, you do fall. And I speak on that because I did that. I went very, very rigid discipline and had no time for other people because I thought that was what was best for me until I realized the isolation and the loneliness just made everything worse.
And thank you for sharing that because I think it's so important in the society that we're in and often seeing everybody's highlight wheel reels and all the things that are going well, we're missing the struggle to get there. And we're missing, some of the falls that people have and how they overcome them to come back, which brings us to almost like a facade of that people just have this easy road. And, before we started recording, you said a lot of people viewed you in that light that you like just achieved all these things and got to this place of being a director, but you're like, but that wasn't without a lot of sacrifice and a lot of hard work and a lot of realization of what you were
Mhm.
struggling with. And then choosing something better for yourself instead of staying in that, although it wasn't comfortable, right? But the comfort zone of that relationship.
Yes.
And that's so huge to celebrate. And I'm glad we have the podcast to talk about it, but I wish we felt more comfortable as women, as professionals, and I mean the men, I'll speak for the men on this too. I won't speak for them, but I know that they do the same too, is that we often see everyone's best foot forward and we put all the struggles down deep because how dare, anybody see the hardship. And I think that that's so important to remember because I would venture to say at this point, you talking about it and what you went through, how much would you say that you learned from those experiences about yourself?
I feel like learned a lifetime of lessons. I really do. Reflecting back on it now, and I love to be vocal to anyone who asks about it. I've been through, emotional abuse, different physical abuses,
Okay.
having, home broken into and stalking and, violent threats through a relationship and, like, the extreme depression and suicidal thoughts and never thinking I'm gonna be okay. I feel I've walked through all of that, and I've worked extremely hard to be okay again or to feel at peace again, and I still have extremely hard days, and I want everyone to know that, like, we everyone's gonna experience some trial and tribulation throughout their life, and it can keep you down for a long time, but I'm so thankful for reaching out. The moments that I had courage to reach out to individuals, that's what I needed, because then those individuals were there, and it became this so many hands helping me back up. Of course, I had to do a lot of the hard work, um,
Absolutely.
and sure, life looks I have beautiful experiences and a beautiful life. I still have extremely hard days. I still struggle with very deep depression. I still have to put in that work years and years later, and I don't think I'll ever have to stop doing that. I think that's just a part of me, and we have to keep pushing forward and keep checking in with ourselves and asking, "Are we okay, and what do we need in this moment? What do I need to do so I can feel relaxed and at peace? What does that look like?" You consistently need to ask yourself these questions.
To wrap up what we're talking about, I think what you said right there is something to really reiterate. And I'm not going to use as beautiful words as you did, but you said, I think it's, like we've got to keep pushing forward. And yes, that's obvious of what the pressure feels like to do. But the most important thing that you said right after that is that, but you've got to check in on yourself. You've got to make sure that you're doing the things to take care of you in order to keep pushing forward. So,
Mhm.
struggling with like reoccurring depression that would come up, yeah, you've got to armor up a lot more as you would probably like to on some days. And thank you so much for armoring up on those days that you're like, screw this, I'm going to stay in bed.
Mhm.
When you hold a position of people looking for that support from you, thank you for learning how to take care of yourself and prioritizing what that looks like so that you can still show up. And I can only imagine the impact that you make for those around you. And that can't always be easy, but thank you for showing up for yourself and for showing up for others and being vulnerable enough to come on here and share with us your journey through this, but also just reminding us that it's not always rainbows and butterflies and these beautiful highlight reels, and it's okay to share that because through those moments, right, like, you're like a lifetime of lessons. It's so important to remember that when we're not doing well, we learn something from that experience and
Mhm.
somebody else can learn from that. And also, there are people out there that want to support you, even if it feels like, "I need to isolate and I don't wanna bother anybody." Don't listen to those parts of you because I mean, this is why Jan and I stay in this. This is why Rob does this. This is why so many people who love this work do what we do because we want to like hold that space. So don't
Yes.
hold it to yourself. Reach out. And thanks
Yes.
for sharing that, Janet. It was so good to spend time with you today and, just be able to share this message. Before we end, what would you say is a motto that you live by on those dark days that helps you to kind of keep going and showing up?
So I would say one of my daily practices, not really a motto, but
Mhm.
always to find something I'm grateful for. And
Gratitude.
something so little as what am I grateful for? And then every morning, for some reason, it plays in my brain is, just do a little bit better than yesterday. What does that look like? And
Mm.
maybe that's reading a few pages of a book or doing some yoga or something that I normally wouldn't want to do because I'm not in the mood and my emotions are poor. I
Yeah.
make one thing to make me better today. And that's what I do every day is just one little thing to be a little bit better. And for some reason, just telling myself that every day, that really helps me.
I love that, and I think it's so important to remember that there's never a cap on what we can learn. There's never a cap on what we can do. I'll always go back to Man's Search for Meaning with Viktor
Mhm.
Frankl. He's like, "If you lose purpose, your soul loses the drive." And so when
Yes.
we find ways to be 1% better or do one more thing bigger or better, I love that. Thank you for sharing that with us. We'll have to have you back, and thank you for your time today and sharing your story with us.
Thank you as well. It was a pleasure being on here.
Thank you so much for listening today. I hope you gained what you needed to hear today. Healing isn't about erasing the past. It's about the strength of moving forward. If today's episode resonated with you, take a moment to share it with someone you love, because when we share with love, we help to break the stigma together. If you want to connect with me and learn more about what we're doing over at Mental Summit to break these stigmas, please connect with me over at mymentalsummit.com. Keep showing up, keep growing, keep going together, and remember, you're not alone in this.